My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from the voodoo. Toi!
You have led the Horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got it over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
Already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guests.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to Whispers of War, show number 57. I'm your host Sil and let's jump into how was my week in Warcraft. I will confess now, it's been a very quiet week because I just get distracted by other games, unfortunately. I think, a little bit of confession time. I think I've been bitten by the sort of like city builder bug at the moment. Ever since Planet Zoo came out, and I've been jumping back into Planet Coaster, The Sims, all those kind of like simulation games. It also doesn't help that I can have night elves or Sims that are based on night elf looks in my game. So I'm making Tyrandia and Ashara besties. I don't know how, but yeah. It's basically like playing with my Barbie dolls, like when I was really young, so... Yeah, it's a bit different than constantly questing and grinding in Warcraft. And I feel like sometimes you need to play something else to really jump back into other games. So, I have periods like that. So it's been a bit quiet on the World of Warcraft front, but I've still done some stuff. So I actually did very little in Classic WoW, I have to admit. First I went to Thousand Needles to try and do some quest, and I thought, oh, you know what, I just have to unlighten a brazier, or douse. That's the English word I was looking for. So I had to douse this brazier, and I thought, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can sneak my way into this cave. Yeah, no, my ass got handed to me every time I tried. And at 4 times corpse running, I kind of had enough. I thought, okay, I'm not enjoying this. Let's go somewhere else. So I pressed my Hearthstone, and I didn't realize it was still set to Tarren Mill. So I ended up in there, and I thought, you know what, let's just see what quests I have here. So I ended up killing loads of turtles. Which was very sort of relaxing just doing that. And I think it might be time, instead of questing, that I actually find some areas just to grind. And don't think too much about it and just grind some levels, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that 30 to 40 slump. I know that people said, or before I said, 20 to 30, that seems a bit like a grind. Everything is a grind, let's face it. Classic WoW, everything is a freaking grind. So I think I will just have to submit to it and just grind, instead of questing all the time. Because it can get really frustrating finding certain quest mobs. Now, if I can find quest mobs that I need to grind, that actually, 2 flies, that would actually work for me. I've done that before in Stone Talon, where there were some areas where I could grind a lot, but I also had to pick up quest mobs and items there, so might as well just, stay a bit longer just to grind it out. And that was fun. As weird as that may sound, I find that really, really relaxing in a way. So that was my Classic WoW time. I am sure that in the weeks to come, I will push forward, because I know that once I'm around level 40, or maybe even like 35, and I can go a bit more towards Stranglethorn, it will be more interesting, even though ganking is much more prevalent in those areas. I have to admit, touch wood, I really haven't been ganked a lot. I've been ganked once, and that's it. So I don't know what it is. I think all the Alliance players I've come across are actually really nice. The fun thing is, the ones that are not really nice, well, that's not true. There's actually like an extreme. Because I had one Night Elf Druid who was amazing. I think I've talked about her a few episodes before. And the other time it was another Night Elf Druid who felt the need to kill me when I was on like 10% health after I was trying to kill a mob. So, you know, you have people like those. But so far, I've not really had an issue with Alliance at all. So that is kind of surprising to me. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty much a fan of world PvP, but I will not be the first one who will attack someone. I just don't see the point in that. You know, most people are just there to quest. If they want to engage in PvP, you'll notice it soon enough, I guess. So, yeah, meh. And I think they are going to get rid of layering now or soon or something like that. So it will be really interesting to see what will happen to the server. I feel like it's a lot quieter. I really feel like at the moment, and that's probably also because everyone has just steamrolled past me and is now level 50 and 60, I also feel like it's not that difficult to get your quest objectives done anymore. Like if you need to kill a certain amount of mobs or grind items or get like this one quest mob that will have an item that you need to kill or whatever, it's not that difficult anymore to do. I'm still a fan of just getting up early in the morning in the weekends, like a Saturday or Sunday, and I just am online at about 7 or 8 a.m. I know, who does that on a weekend, right? And then just get those named mobs, and it actually, I don't know, it's a way of doing it. That's how I prefer to do it. Instead of grouping up, I don't mind grouping up, but I prefer to do it that way. So that's classic. Now I actually spend more time in BFA, because, well, there was lots to do, for me at least. I started leveling a Cold Terran Druid and a Worgen Warlock, both of them, and it just feels like such a breeze leveling in BFA, because I can watch my YouTube videos again, or a bit of Netflix, and it's, I don't know, it's just, it feels kind of good being that powerful at level 20. It makes a really nice contrast, but I think that's why at times I find it very hard to get back into Classic, because I'm just like, oh, fuck this. This is so much easier. I prefer what I can do in Battle for Azeroth. And I have to say, I know that some people say, oh, Classic is it, that is it now for me. That's great, that is it for you. In all fairness, I think Battle for Azeroth, I like the new changes of, you know, quality of life patches that we've had in this game and the expansions. I really, really appreciate it for what it is. It is a bit like a different game, and that's fine. So if you want to play a harder game, a harder version of World of Warcraft, you can go to Classic. And if you don't, then go to BFA. BFA has its own challenges, and I don't understand why people have to, you know, dig onto people who really enjoy BFA. If that is your thing, then that is your thing. If you really like hardcore grinding and you know, everything that's a little bit more effort to do things in Classic, then that's your thing. I don't understand why all of a sudden there's such a big divide, you know? I'm embracing both. I like both, but if I have to say my preference at the moment, and I didn't think I was going to say that. If you would have asked me that a few weeks ago, I would not have said this. But it is Battle for Azeroth. And I think that's purely from a role player's point of view. Because I love the transmog system. I love the fact that certain things are just easier. I like the aesthetics, especially with druids. I love the aesthetics of the animal forms and just whatever you could do. I also think night elves look a lot better now than they used to. But I don't know, I just like the ability to have other races that we don't have in Classic. But Classic has its own charm, and I think because of the simplicity of what it is, you know, you don't have to, it's just that. You don't have to do lots of things like, oh no, I need to go through this content, I need to go through this content, or it's different, you know. It feels like you could just focus on one or two things in Classic, whereas with BFA, if you try to do it all, you might put a bit too much on your plate. So yeah, I can appreciate both for what it is, but my preference at the moment is BFA. I am really enjoying it. But both have been a blast, really. So like I said, I've made my druid and my warlock, and really enjoying it. Just going through some of the areas again because I completely forgot what it was like. I haven't done proper leveling in like a while now, taking Classic out of the equation. And I joined the Taliethics Retail Guild, or the BFA Guild, with my druid, which has been great. So if you want to join that guild, just try and search on our server, which is Artendon EU, Alliance side, I have to say, and just type in a bit like Taliethics, and I'm sure you will find someone who can invite you. It's just a nice social guild, I think, for people who didn't have a guild in BFA, and it's just, I don't know, everyone has been really friendly, and it's just nice to have a bit of chatter. And you know, with the new scaling, I think grouping can be a bit easier now as well. I have not tried it yet. I need to try it out, so I'm going to make a serious effort with that this week, to play maybe a little bit more BFA and a little bit more of Classic. All these things I need to tick off my list. So yeah, I'm enjoying my time in World of Warcraft, but like I said, I need to at times take a little bit of a step back, do some other things, to really appreciate World of Warcraft for what it is. And I know myself, I'll get super hyped when we hit Blizzcon. And I will talk a little bit about that in a bit. So just to finish off what I did this week, I did set myself on the course to get that B mount. I thought, you know, why not? It's not like I have to do a raid achievement or anything difficult like that. I'm just going to start the quest. But in order to start the quest, I have to get a little bee pet. And I had a really, really dumb moment because either you can get the Sea Breeze Bumbles, I think it's called, which you get when you're, or you can buy when you're revered with Storm's Wake. That's the rep, I think it is. Which I am revered, but you need pet coins for that, or polished pet coins or something like that. This is how much I pet bottle. And I thought, crap, I don't have those. How much are they on the auction house? And they are, I think, between 20,000 and 60,000. That is on my on the European servers. And I think it's also the same on Artendon. I think that's just what it is. And it was just too... I'm not paying that for a pet. Even though it will lead me into the mount. I thought, no, I'm not doing that. I thought, you know what? First plan. Let's just try and get these shiny pet coins or whatever it is. So I need to do pet battles and all those other things. So I looked at all my alts because they're account bound, and I found a few on my rogue on horde side, and I thought, okay, I'll just transfer it all to my druid, because no pun intended there. When I looked on my goblin rogue on a different server, she had shit tons of gold, and I could actually purchase the pet from the auction house, I thought. But I can't, because you can only buy the pet when you have the freaking wrap. So no horde character can actually buy that pet. So I was a bit like miffed when I heard that. I was not happy. Or found out, actually, because I was clicking on the buyout now and it just didn't work. So yeah, not a good plan. So then I thought, okay, well, let's get the coins. Got all my coins, not all of them. I was missing about 50 or 60. Because I think the pet is 250 and I think I had 190 or something. So I went to Dalaran because I also had some other pet related items I could redeem. So I went there and then I saw, oh, look at these battle stones. Oh yeah, I'll buy a few of those. Not realizing that I'm actually using the wrong currency for that. So I'm actually using those shiny coins that I needed for that freaking bumblebee. So all of a sudden I went like, wait a minute, what happened? And nobody used the stones, of course, so I couldn't even, sell them back. And I thought, okay, that was a really, really thick moment there, Sil. So maybe not. That really killed the enjoyment of trying to get those coins. I thought, I'm not doing that again. So another plan. Then I saw that you can also get a bumblebee pet if you do a sort of like you need to find an item, which is a medallion, I think, on the mobs around the area where all the bees are. And when you hand that locket into a little boy, it will send you to your mum or something like that. So I thought, okay, let's just try that. So I've been grinding there for about an hour, and the freaking medallion didn't drop. And then I thought, you know what, let's just go to Wowhead and just see what they say. And someone actually said, you can do a much better thing if you go to this area. So it's not the bee area, and this is, I'm just saying this now to everyone who might be thinking about this. Go to where the I think it's called Warsong Hold, I'm not entirely sure, but it's the Horde main area in Stormsong Valley. So if you go up that hill, there are some little clusters of bees actually, and you need to kill those. Honestly, I killed a pack of, I think on my third pack the item dropped, and I was like 5 minutes in. Because apparently the drop rate is much higher there, and a lot of people have said that. So I saw someone else saying that in trade or general, that they were really having a hard time trying to get the item. So I whispered them and said, you need to go here, these are the coordinates, and kill these bees, because I got them after 5 minutes, and I think they were grateful. I hope that they got it after 5 minutes as well, or maybe even quicker. So that's my little tip to you. If you're still trying to do that, just go there. It's so much easier. So got the medallion, handed it in, got a letter to give it to the boy, and then you get the daily to feed his bee pet some honey and mix it. It's so freaking simple. It is so simple, but it is time gated, because I think you have to do it 7 times, so at least a week, before you actually get the pet as a reward. And once you have that pet, then you can continue. I'm only on day, I think today is day 4, so I am going to do my 4th time today. And then by the end of the week, hopefully I'll have the pet, and I will continue trying to get the bee mount. I don't mind grinding. And in all fairness, I think things like this are really easy, just because, in BFA, unlike Classic, if you tag something that someone else tags from your faction, it's all good. So, it just makes everything a little bit easier. I've already heard something about honey and jellies that's going to be sold on the auction house, and that Guildies had, and I was like, okay, that's something to consider then. So that's for me another just day of just grinding and watching Netflix, I guess. With grinding comes the income of gold. I'm just seeing it like that. It's not a bad thing. I know some people really despise it. I don't really mind it that much. So, yeah, that's really it. One little fun thing that I discovered, and I'm sure I'm so far behind with this, but I really liked the little Winnie the Pooh reference that you find in Stormsong, and it was just really nice when I saw the bear and the little you saw Winnie the Pooh, you saw Eeyore, you saw Tigger, and Piglet, and then of course Robinson. I forgot his name. What's his name? Jonathan? Oh no, I can't remember. Oh, that's it. That's all my Disney credits gone out of the window. But that's really. Yeah, that's surprising. I forgot that. Anyhow, but I thought that was really cute. I really like it when I see things like that in game. So yeah, that made my day. So I will quickly go to a little bit of WoW news before I jump into the interview with you guys. the one thing that's really, really like big for me, only has my interest, is that the BlizzCon tickets have gone on sale. And I don't know why I really missed that on anything like social media, and I only saw it in-game all of a sudden. But yeah, I am really surprised with the things that you can get this year. So BlizzCon tickets, they are still as pricey as last year, because I think they upped the prices last year. Last year I had no interest at all, and I'm sort of happy that I didn't buy it, because we all know it wasn't that great last year. And I know, well, I'm for almost 90% certain it's going to be amazing this year when it comes to World of Warcraft stuff and other announcements, because I'm looking forward to Diablo and all those things. But for me personally, I really think WoW is going to be a big thing this year. I hope. I really hope. Don't disappoint me. But last year you only got like a transmog, I think it was a cloak, wasn't it? A cloak, and then some banners that you could throw up. Who wants that? You know, I was a bit like, oh no, I like pets and I like mounts. I don't understand why I'm getting this. So no mount this year, but we do get 2 pets. So you get Finduin and Gilvanas. Murlocs based on Anduin and Sylvanas, which I think is freaking brilliant. I really, really enjoy that. And I wonder if they interact with each other. I wonder if you see a Gilvanas and a Finduin, if they do anything together. Like you sometimes see with the StarCraft Murloc and the little... Oh, what's it called? The little Zergling. The Zergling pets, that they start fighting each other. So I wonder if that will happen. But you get another transmog item, which is a Wendigo or a Yeti onesie. And that is actually really cute. And even though I know that some people really hate it because people will say, oh, you're a sellout, you're a shill, why do you give them money? Because I want to see the ticket, and I'm not paying out £5,000 to go to BlizzCon. That's why. I'd rather spend 35 then. But why, you know, I think it's cute. I can see it a little bit from an RPer's perspective, that some people go like, this doesn't make sense in character. Well, maybe not, but who cares? You know, there's a lot of things that don't make sense in a fantasy world. Who cares? Just have some fun with it. So, yeah, I think that's really cool. And you know that you always get more stuff, like probably a set of wings for Diablo. I'm sure that you will get like... oh, you actually get 2 skins. One is, I think it's Tyrande, and the other one is Illidan for Overwatch, which probably means I have to start playing Overwatch again. Now, I say it as if I don't want to play Overwatch, I do, but I'm just really bad at it, and yeah, I'm more like a burden on people than really helping my team out. But I don't have to re-chat, I guess. What else? And I'm sure you get like portraits for StarCrafting units, things like that, you know. Probably a new Heroes of the Storm skin as well. I think you get a mount, but I'm not entirely sure. So, you know, it's not bad. And I'm sure they will announce more things that you get. Maybe we'll get a beta of some sort. That would be kind of cool. And maybe it's for something kind of brand new, shiny Warcraft expansion. We never know. So yeah, I am looking forward to BlizzCon, and I can't watch it on the day because I won't be around. BlizzCon falls exactly on my birthday. I think it was the same thing last year, and funnily enough, my partner's birthday is the day after. So we differ one day, and yeah, we decided not to be around for our birthdays. We're going away, and I don't really want to like go like, oh, sorry, honey, I know it's your birthday, but I'm watching BlizzCon now. I don't think he would appreciate that, so not going to do that. I will have to buy the ticket and watch it. Probably on the way home. That's what I'm going to do. He's going to drive for 5 hours, and I'm going to just watch it in the car. So, yeah. We'll just have to, play it on rerun, and I'm just hoping I won't get spoiled by everyone, which is going to be difficult, I think. I think it will be hard to try and avoid everything on social media. But that's really the plan. Like I said, I am looking forward to seeing it this year. I have high expectations, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. Even though I think the price is still a bit steep. I'm really sorry to be that kind of person, but I think it's kind of steep. So I am going to wait with buying that ticket right before my birthday, because I'm sure my family will have provided for me, so to say, so I can actually afford it without having to eat beans all week. And yeah, it's going to be fun, I think. It's going to be really fun. I think one of these weeks I'm going to put the question of the week out with our BlizzCon predictions. And we can talk about everything. So not just World of Warcraft. If you have any predictions about the other games or maybe a new IP, let me know. So that will be soon on the Twitter. Anyhow, I am going to leave you with an amazing interview I had with the lovely Glonk, and I will come back afterwards. And with me today, I'm being joined by another lovely lady. I just love it that we have so many female gamers coming out of the woodworks. You know, they've all come out of hiding, finally. So I can finally have some more female opinions about stuff, especially World of Warcraft. So welcome, Glonk.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad. Enjoying a day off. It's always nice.
That's always a good thing. Okay, Glonk, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Right. Well, I'm 29 years old, live in Canada, working on getting into law enforcement. So trying to balance all of that with gaming is always an interesting challenge. I've got a wonderfully adorable husky mix named Ralphie. I'm going to apologize now because if they he likes to howl at emergency vehicles. If we get a fire truck going by, he's howling. Every time he does it.
We've had many dogs on the show, whether they wanted to or not, so that is fine.
So, throwing that out there, I think he's sleeping on the bed right now, but it might happen. I also have a bearded dragon who's sulking away in his cage like he always does. I'm into a huge variety of crafts. I do photography, chainmail, cross stitch. I do some knitting, some painting. I also make my own wine. And despite being a crafty person and liking to make things, I have absolutely zero concept or ability to market anything I make. So don't be asking me for a store because I don't know how to market. Like, people want to buy stuff, cool. They don't, whatever. It's kind of how I look at it.
That's quite good. But what sort of things do you make?
With chainmail, I'll do like necklaces and bracelets. I've actually been contemplating doing a Sylvanas cosplay, so I'm kind of trying to do one of her neck pieces, which is proving to be quite a challenge. Ooh. I haven't done anything large scale because that's just a whole lot of work that I just don't have time for. Cross stitch, I actually made a dice bag for D&D, which I started playing a little while ago. It has a D20 dice on one side, all hand cross-stitched into the fabric of the bag, and on the other side it has That's How I Roll stitched onto it. So I had a lot of fun making that.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah, so that's a couple things that I do. And I've made a couple of blankets with knitting because if I'm gonna knit, I'm gonna make something big.
I love it, you're so creative.
I like it, it's fun. It's relaxing.
Now, let's jump into World of Warcraft. My question, are you Horde or are you for the Alliance?
Mostly for the Horde. Most of my tunes are Horde characters. It's what I started out with playing. But I do have a couple of Alliance characters because I'm of the opinion that I want to play with people that I like playing with. Screw factions.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So if they're playing Alliance, I'll hop onto an Alliance character. If they're playing Horde, I'll hop onto a Horde character. So I kind of bounce back and forth, but most of my characters are Horde.
Nice, that's very nice. So are you always trying to make sure that you have at least one of the two like geared up?
As best I can, but unfortunately with going into law enforcement and being a shift worker, that can prove to be a bit of a challenge sometimes, but I do the best that I can. And some of my friends are pretty great about it, and they'll help me out when I have the time to be on with just getting gear and everything.
Yeah, well, at least you know you have people to help you out with that. That's good.
Yep.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning. How did you start getting into World of Warcraft and actually feeling that, oh, this is my game?
Well, I started playing back in 2010, just before Cataclysm dropped. So I have some vanilla experience, even though it's not quite true vanilla. I had moved 3 provinces away with my boyfriend at the time, and his cousin was playing, and my boyfriend had kind of played. So I'm looking over his shoulder one day and going, like, this looks really cool. What game is that? So he set me up, did the recruit a friend thing with me, showed me a bunch of different things, and from then on I was hooked. And I've had a couple of moments where I have stopped playing the game just because, like, I'd hit end level and it's like, well, what do I do? You know, I didn't have much of a community at the time to play, so there was a period between Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria where I didn't play, and then I'd resubbed just before Warlords of Draenor dropped, and I've been playing mostly consistently since then.
Okay. Well, what class was it that you initially went with?
I started off with a troll warrior. I still have her kicking around somewhere. She's moved a few servers since I started playing. And my favorite thing at the time was going into Battlegrounds as a prop warrior, because it would always take 5 Alliance to try and kill me. And I'd always take 2 or 3 of them out every single time without fail before they finally managed to kill me.
Nice.
Yeah, it was amazing, just that powerful feeling I had at the time.
Are you still into warrior, or is it something like another class that mostly takes your interest now?
It hasn't been warrior for a long time. Like, I still have her, I'll still play her a little bit, but since I resubbed, I've pretty much been playing monk for the most part. Mostly Mistweaver, but I have played a little bit with Windwalker, and especially with just trying to level and do open world content when you're on your own, it's kind of hard to do as a healer. But I've been playing that one for the majority of the time since I resubbed.
Okay. I like hearing other monks on the podcast. I always feel like it's one of those classes that, for some weird reason, a lot of people seem to have dropped all of a sudden, and I don't know if that's because of the flavor of the month, as they like to call it. And then it's always nice to hear people go, no, actually I still play my monk, and that's cool.
I don't know, I find it one of the more versatile classes out there, and it's a lot of fun to play.
Do you prefer hybrids on the whole, or?
It depends on my mood. I definitely do enjoy healing, but as I said, like, open world content, when you're on your own, healing's kind of difficult to do. But I'm not the kind of person to dive into the middle of a fight all the time, so I kind of like hanging back and just like, oh, you're dying, here, let me save you. Like, I'll have 5% health, and it's like, oh shit, healing, and that I like to call it, where I'm just dumping everything I can and then moving on to the next person half the time. It's definitely a different experience than just sitting, oh, look, there's red, I need to kill it, and then diving after it.
Okay, and especially with that, is it the role that monks do?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more mobile healers that I've played.
Yeah, I quite like that, because I used to be druid healer back in the day, so I do like that about healers, that it's a little bit more mobile.
Yeah, definitely one of the more mobile ones out there.
Yeah. Right, let's go to your topic that you picked, and it's not super long, the line, but it is how hard it can be for shift workers to do endgame content. Now, this wouldn't just be shift workers. I guess it would be people with any irregularity in their life. So that could be, don't take this the wrong way, guys, but it could be like having kids or other things that you have to do because you can't hold to a certain time, because there's always work or someone who demands your time, a little person. So why did you pick this subject?
I picked this one because it's probably the one thing that I dislike about the game the most. Like, I enjoy doing some PvP things. I enjoy doing PvE. I like raiding. I like doing dungeons. Unfortunately, the majority of groups out there, they want you to be able to commit to set days and times. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, 7 to 9 kind of deal.
Yeah.
I can't commit to that. Just using my schedule as an example, I work 4 on, 4 off, so my days off shift every week, but I also do 12-hour days. And in addition to that, every 2 weeks, I'm switching from days to nights. So while the 4 on 4 off, I might be able to come when I'm working days if it starts late enough or I have time to get home. It doesn't work the next 2 weeks because I'm on overnights, because I'm actually now working during that time. And a lot of groups don't like that inconsistency. It also makes it very difficult to gear up and maintain my characters, like especially when you look at dungeons. Like I remember back in Wrath of the Lich King, it was always like item level was always the thing, and then with Legion last expansion and BFA, a lot of people are looking at IO rating. Don't ask me what it means. I don't know. I just hear it thrown around all the time. And it's basically your rating and how you're doing in dungeons and with Mythic Plus and so on. I'm not the greatest player out there, but I am a pretty good player. I know my class well. I know how to play it. I know the intricacies. Yeah, I'm a little out of touch sometimes on mechanics, but I very rarely make the same mistake twice, and I do learn very quickly. I've actually had a supervisor at a job years ago comment that I'm like a sponge because I absorb information so well and retain it. But because my life, like real life and everything, doesn't revolve around the game, even though it is the most played game that I have, because I don't have the time to grind out this silly number that everyone's using, I don't get accepted into a lot of groups. I know that I can do it, but because I don't have the numbers to back it out, because I don't sit here and play the game for hours on end on my days off, a lot of people are declining me for those groups. And I just find it very frustrating and unfair. And I know that there's other people too, like as you'd mentioned, people with kids. I know a lot of people these days with kids, and you've got the scheduling for them, like say they're in after school sports or something like that, and how you got to take them to that. And it just makes it difficult to have a life outside of the game. And the fact that a lot of people are looking at this, like, we're not all method, we're not all limit. They get paid to do this for a living. We don't. And it's just, there's so many people that want to be at that level, and it's like, that's fine, that's great, but you need to understand too, like, this game's kind of getting up there where the majority of the player base that started playing 15 years ago now has vastly different lives than they did when they first started playing. And I don't think that the attitude has necessarily shifted. Like, it's starting to shift, but I don't think it has fully shifted. That there's a lot of stuff going on in real life. The game is not the be all and end all, and some of the strict standards that a lot of people are looking for in terms of rating, in terms of even PvP with their like 2200 rating that they want for 2s or whatever, and like dungeons with the IO rating. And it's just, I think a lot of people put too much pressure on others to have those ratings when in some cases it's just simply not feasible, and that there's other things that you can look at as to whether a player is actually good or not.
Yeah, it's that meme that you always see, like I think the basics was, you need to have the achievement to do the raid, but I need to raid to get the achievements. And no, I understand. And especially when you're on shifts or you have little people, then it becomes more and more difficult to find a group that will actually help you get it. Do you feel like, because you've been playing for a long time, do you feel like the game has always been quite unfriendly when it comes to those who have a schedule that changes consistently, like with shift work, like with kids, or do you feel like it's gotten worse?
I don't know if it's maybe because I'm experiencing it more myself that I'm really noticing it, because like when I had resubbed in like a month or two before Warlords dropped, I was working a job where I was working mostly days, so I didn't really have a whole lot of the time constraints. But then since I've been working this job where I am doing a lot of this shift work, I've definitely noticed it a lot more, and it's made me kind of rethink even how I interact with other people. Because before I used to be like, oh, you can't commit to this, why are you even bothering? But now I can understand the flip side of it is, I know I'm a good player, I know I can do this, but it's just getting someone to kind of give me that chance that it's like, it's frustrating. And I understand that a lot of people don't want to take the time to walk people through it, but at the same time, you can't be asking for crazy requirements. And there's a middle ground that not a lot of people know or understand, and it's that understanding that is very frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever, like for instance with guilds, with the recruitments and everything, have you ever been in a guild like that and they've said, you know what, we can't make it work, and they've kicked you or they've benched you? Has that ever happened?
Oddly enough, one of my last guilds, actually. I'm not in there anymore for multiple reasons, but one of the things that always drove me nuts about it is they were always promoting, like, real life comes first. If you can't make it because of something real life, that's fine. And they come across as being very understanding. And this happened a couple of times where I would have periods of activity where I'm very active in the guild, just schedule whatever was going on in my life. I didn't feel like I wanted to do much besides the game. And they're like, oh, okay, why don't you become an officer? So, it's like, okay, fine, great. And then it's like, okay, real life is catching up, or I feel like, I'm starting to get a little bit of burnout. I'm going to go do something else, but you can still reach me, other methods. And because I would have those periods of inactivity, be it because of work or just personal, like, I want to go for a hike today instead of gaming, I would end up losing my officer position. And this happened a couple of times, and I finally turned around at one point, and it's like, you're trying to promote this culture of real life comes first, like this is just a game, yet you take the game very seriously, and you remove people from positions that they're capable of doing simply because they're not here. Like, that's kind of a double standard here. You're sending a bit of a mixed message. And between that and a few other double standards I had noticed in the guilds, I ended up having quite a bit of a falling out with the GM of that guild. I'm no longer part of it, but it was always something that drove me nuts. So it's just that double standard of, you guys are saying this, but what you're actually doing is the complete opposite. Like, this isn't making much sense. Yeah, I can understand that is really, really frustrated. Yeah.
Have you ever thought to maybe make your own guilds to make it work for other people who have that sort of commitment? Or
I've thought about that, but that kind of goes back to my zero concept or ability to market anything that I do or make.
Okay.
I'm not the type of person to just go around like, hey, join my guild. Like, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not very good at it. I did raid lead a little bit last expansion, actually, and trying to, like, it's a tough job trying to get a raid team together. Like, there's not a lot of people understand that it's almost a job in itself, just trying to get the people together, make sure that they're good enough, doing, like, researching the fights. And even with running a guild, you have a lot of that, because you want to be able to provide things for players, like guild bank repairs, materials, things like that. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. Like, my hat is off to any GM that can pull it off, especially when I see these guilds, and I'm part of guilds that are like multi-server guilds, like thousands of people playing. Like, it's a tough job, and it really is a job, and that's just something I don't have the time for, unfortunately.
Yeah, that becomes harder then.
Yeah.
How do you make it work? Because you said before that, you still gear up and you make sure that you have two on the Alliance and the Horde. So how do you make it work for yourself?
Well, I'm very lucky that when I'm on night shifts with where I am, it's very quiet, and I have supervisors too that are very understanding. Like, they don't expect me to be on my A game, to be always focusing on the job, because honestly, in a 12-hour shift, there's maybe 3 or 4 hours of actual work that I have to do, not including anything that comes up in the shift, which does happen. But my supervisors are very understanding. When I'm at work, work comes first. But if it's a quiet moment, if there's nothing going on, if I'm, on par with what I need to do, or I'm even ahead of what I need to do for the night, I'll sit down, I'll pull out my laptop, I'll play a little bit, and they know, because they've seen it firsthand, that as soon as that call comes in, or as soon as something happens, I'm out the door focusing on work. Like, I will leave my character parked in the middle of whatever zone I'm in, and I'll come back to it dead because I have war mode on, and it's like, whatever. I had to go do work. That was the more important thing. So, and they've seen that, so they don't generally say much about me being on my laptop, but at the same time, it's very limited in what I can do, because I can't Like, I don't want to be sitting there joining a Mythic Plus, for example, which has a timer, because in the middle of that, I might have to run on this call for work. And that now screws up whoever's key this is, because I'm not going to be back in time for us to make the timer.
Yeah.
So I won't do group stuff, but I'll do like a lot of the questing thing. Like, we have gear options that don't rely on doing those group things. And that's how, too, I'll get a lot of stuff done that maybe I don't necessarily have time to do otherwise, but it's a good chance just to kind of help make sure that I'm maintaining my character and maintaining my skills with the characters. I'll play a little bit, and mostly solo content when I'm at work. And then when I'm on my days off, that's when I can go, okay, let's get some dungeons done. Let's get all this done. And I'll focus my time on that instead of the solo content.
Okay. Do you have any tips for people who are in that same position and are like, well, you know, I want to do all of this. What are some good tips that you could give them?
The best thing I can suggest really is take a look at everything that you want to do and prioritize it. Like, what do you want to do the most? And what do you need to do in order to do that? Like, for me, I love raiding. So that means making sure that my character is geared up, making sure that I know what I'm doing for the most part. So like, I'll study fights as well when I'm working, and things like that. And it's just, what can you do when you're not necessarily on the game? Another thing that I do is I also like to do a little bit of gold making as best I can, which is another thing that I'll do at work. I'll just set it up and like, I'll fish for a couple of hours. It's mind numbing, but you know, to make that gold when I have limited time as it is, it's one of the better things that I can do at work, because it's something that I can easily pick up and drop as things progress in my shift. So really just making that list of what do you want to do the most, what do you need to do to get to that, and kind of prioritizing what you need to do, and just understanding you might not get everything done, but as long as you can get the bare minimum of what you need to get done, that'll help you out in the long run. And then you can work on the details with other people, or as you can, basically.
Oh, those are some solid tips, I think. If it was up to you, you have control over Blizzard and how you could design the game. Regarding this issue, what do you think you'd want to change, and do you have ideas for it?
Honestly, and I know some people dislike this, but lower some of the requirements. Like, okay, minor spoiler here, for the Pathfinder achievements. The rep grinding takes a long time. It's a lot of work. Yeah, I can understand they don't want to make it too easy, and yeah, that there are players that, you know, can put in the time, but at the same time, I think that they're trying to find this balance between players that play the game exclusively and not wanting them to get bored, and players that maybe don't have the time and that are getting discouraged. I think it's skewed a little bit more to the players that are on more often than others, and maybe that balance needs to kind of be brought back a little bit. The other thing that kind of drives me nuts is the sharding thing that they brought in.
Many people talk about that.
Yeah, like, I will leave war mode on a lot of my characters. I like the PvP. I'm on a server where world PvP is huge. Like, it's probably the biggest thing on the server. Like, there's disagreements that end up rolling over onto Twitter, of all places, with arguments between various guilds and various players. It could get quite intense. Like, it's almost a religion on my server. And the sharding, it's a great idea in theory, but in practice it has not happened that way. Like, depending on what character I'm on, I'm either on a shard where it's horde dominated and we're just like wrecking face, or I'm on a shard that's alliance dominated and getting steamrolled every 5 seconds. And getting steamrolled every 5 seconds makes the whole, you know, questing leveling up process, even in the lower levels in BFA, makes it quite a bit of a nightmare. So yeah. It's not very well balanced, and it doesn't help too that there's a lot of people on my server who I swear have nothing better to do than figure out how to still get what they want done. Like, screw the system. So we figured out how to pull people into various shards depending on what's happening. and these tribes can't handle the large fights that we have. Like, you start getting 40 people in one area all fighting each other, you start getting lag. When that snowballs, because it inevitably will snowball, into 80 or 120 players, you're basically staring at a screen that isn't moving, hitting buttons, hoping to God that you're doing something. And as fun as that can be, when you're not seeing the results of what you're doing, it kind of takes a little bit of that PvP enjoyment out, especially in the large scale things. And I know Blizzard has been trying to do this sharding thing to try and resolve that issue. It doesn't work. The Blizzard needs to kind of upgrade their servers a little bit for that. It just does not work. I mean, great theory when you have smaller groups, but when you have entire guilds that are trying to pull as many people as possible and will start multiple raids to wreck face, you kind of need to upgrade the back end to handle that demand, and it's been an issue for years.
Yeah, it is interesting that they still, I mean, back in the day it wasn't sharding, but that they still have issues with that, because I remember, as many of the listeners have heard me talk about the fact that I once in vanilla had, we did the same thing. We were on a PvP server. There was a lot of smack talk on the official forums, and we were going to have a battle Horde versus Alliance in the Shimmering Flats when it wasn't, on the water. And you see a massive group of people, and the servers we made them crash that side, because it just could not handle so many people and fighting and all the spell effects. It just flats.
Oh yeah,
flatline.
It sucks. And it's another thing that even goes into just even raiding. Like, yeah, you might have, and I know Mythic raiding is only maximum of 20 people, but you're doing normal heroic and you're pulling in almost a full 40-man raid. You're even experiencing that on the PvE side of things where it can't handle it. And I mean, I understand everybody has a different computer system set up in terms of parts and what their machine can handle. But there needs to be that balance between what the player's computer is expected to handle and what the servers are expected to handle. And the servers I think, need to kind of step up their game a little bit here on what they can handle. And that's something that Blizzard, I think, should be focusing on. But as we all know, as the world of game design, and especially with Activision now owning Blizzard, that's might be a bit much to ask for, but one can always hope,
Yeah, we will see what happens, especially when we go back to Classic and how they want to do all of that. That will be interesting to see how it goes.
It'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Glonk, do you have anything else to say about this topic before I jump back to BFA?
I think that's pretty much all I have to say on it. It's been a bit of a rant on its own, and there's more people that I'm sure will chime in periodically, but it's that I've pretty much said my piece on that.
You know what? I think it's fair enough, and I think that there is a large, like you said, people also grow older now. I think that generation that started playing, that was a certain age, that didn't have that many responsibilities, whether it be shift work, kids, or anything else.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have grown into that age now that we have those responsibilities. So they will have to start looking at things, how to make it work for everyone, all their entire player base.
Oh yeah, and it's a challenge, and I don't envy them, but hopefully it can be done.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yep.
Right. So let's go back to BFA and the impressions. If you had to pick, what are you most impressed with, and what are you least impressed with in the new expansion?
What I'm most impressed with would be world design and music. And even in Legion, I enjoyed it too. I actually enjoy some of the Alliance zones more than the Horde zones, just in terms of aesthetics and the background music that they've picked. And they've done really a top-notch job. Like, Drustvar is probably one of my favorite zones, and I do like Borealis, especially for a lot of the music in and around that area. And with the Horde side, and this is something that I've noticed kind of going through, Alliance has always had much larger cities and towns and everything than Horde. And part of the reason why I prefer Horde over Alliance is because I kind of like that kind of rustic, no-basted space feel that the Horde has had up until this expansion, where it's almost like that's been flipped on its head. Like, if you look at Dazar lore, or in Zoldazar there, the new Horde city there, like, that place is massive. Like, it's really massive. Like, it's bigger than Borealis, I'm pretty sure, but it's just so well done as well. Just looking at it, it's kind of awe-inspiring. As for what I'm least impressed with, probably just the launch and everything, and the amount of things that had to be fixed and adjusted. Like, I was seeing a lot, even on Twitter and on the forums, like, people saying, like, this stuff was noted in beta as being an issue, and why is this only now getting fixed? Like, it didn't feel like a very good launch in terms of the quality of what was being offered at the time. And there have been some improvements there, but I think it's a little bit away from what the initial vision was, and I'm kind of worried that maybe we were given something that was rushed and wasn't actually polished just because, Activision wanted to make money off of it instead of waiting for it to be polished and to be enjoyable by people.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. Again, I've heard people say that before, so it will be interesting to see what they would announce with the new expansion, if that has improved as well. Especially now, I think that Classic has been planned and they've pushed everything a little bit back with the testing. So
yeah, they've been focusing on that quite a bit, and it'll be nice to see Classic. Like, I was almost 10 years ago now since I last saw that, and it's like, it'll be nice to kind of get that nostalgia and just seeing the world before Deathwing's destruction.
Oh yeah, because I can't even really remember some of the quest lines anymore. It would be, I think for me, starting as a night elf, it would be nice to see Oberdeen without it being in ruins and everything.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, even in like in and around Orgrimmar, the way that it looked then, and Thousand Needles not being underwater, and just like, it'll be nice to go back and explore the world. And especially with my current boyfriend, he started playing after the destruction, so I've been trying to tell him like how this all looked beforehand, and he has absolutely no clue because you can't find anything, like not even screenshots. So it'll be nice just to kind of like, hey, like, this is what I started with, this is what everything looked like, this is how everything was. That's and the talent trees.
Yeah.
God, the talent trees. They're fun, but there's a lot of work for those.
Yes, definitely. And especially if you want to swap spec, that will be very interesting with the golds.
Oh, it was tough.
It wasn't the easiest of times.
No, but it was fun.
Exactly, yeah. I'm sure, we'll have to see how it goes, how it progresses, but so far I'm still wearing those rose goggled glasses for them.
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I know that you've already given a few tips on how to play the game when you are dealing with shift work, but do you have any other good tips regarding BFA for the listeners?
Honestly, the only other thing I can really think of is, just play the game that you want to play it. There's so many people, and I see this in general chat in a lot of zones, like, who nitpick whether you have war mode on or off, or it's like, hey, I'm getting camped, can I get some help? And 9 times out of 10, half the help that I see is, oh, just go turn war mode off. Like, that's not what this person is asking. Between that and the IO rating, it's like, oh, your IO rating is not high enough, you can't do this with us. It's not worth stressing over all those things. At the end of the day, this is just a game. Enjoy what you enjoy, and try and find people that enjoy the same things you do in the game. Like, not everybody who plays this game is going to want to do the same things you do. They're not going to enjoy the same aspects of the game that you do, and that's fine. There are people out there that do enjoy what you enjoy in the game. You just might have to take a little bit of work to find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
what has the Warcraft community meant to you?
It's been a place where I can enjoy myself. I've run into a lot of people. Like, just the other day, I was looking for a couple of rares in one of the zones, and I didn't have flying yet. And some random person who saw me asking invited me to a group, and they had a 2-seater mount, and they started flying me around. Like, hey, where do you need to go? Like, just out of the blue. I didn't ask them specifically. And they helped me out, and it's one of those things where anytime I encounter someone just going out of their way to help out someone without any prompting or whatever, it's probably one of my favorite things about the game. Like, even though not everybody does it, there's still enough people that do, where it's like, hey, this is cool, and like, you're making new friends that way. And I can either be my usual shy, introverted self where I barely say anything, I just kind of like head down, I'm going to do what I want, or if I'm feeling a little bit more adventurous, I'll join in on conversations like, hey, what are you guys up to? Hey, like, who needs to get this done? Who needs help with this? There's no pressure from anybody in the game to be one or the other. And it's probably my favorite thing about the game is I can choose my level of interaction on a day-to-day basis and nobody faults me for it.
That is really nice. And I think if we look back at Classic, it will be nice when the community starts to actually talk again, and if that bleeds through to retail, so that people actually start to group up and start to talk and just are a little bit more, instead of going back to Baron's chat. I don't mind Baron's chat, don't get me wrong. But
it's hit or miss, and I mean, and everyone like on the US America's side always makes fun of Moonguard for all their ERP, and it's like, you know what, I was on Moonguard for quite a while, and yeah, there was some instances of that, but it's not everything that was on the server, despite popular opinion. Like, yeah, it'll be nice if more of that community feel kind of bleeds back into the game instead of being in like Discord or Twitter or on the forums, because a lot of that seems to have kind of moved outside of the game, but it'll be nice to see it inside the game again.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, now we go to the weird and final question of the podcast. So, what is your whisper? And a whisper can be basically anything that you want to say about the game, but it could be a wish maybe that you have, or something you want to have changed when it comes to mechanics, or a bit of theory crafting when it comes to the story. So, what would your whisper be?
I would actually love to start seeing GMs in game more often.
Mm.
Like I've always heard stories of these mythical GMs just like randomly popping up in front of you in game and doing like just random things. And I kind of saw a little bit of it when I started playing, but it hasn't been something that has happened for a while. And I don't know if it's just like budgetary constraints where they don't have as many GMs, or the GMs don't have time to do that because there's so many people, but it'd be nice to see the GMs just kind of like popping up randomly in the world to help people and like make a game out of it, like have a micro holiday. GM hide and seek, like have the GMs hide somewhere in the world and drop hints for people to go find them and like give them something cool out of it, just something. But it'd be nice to see them in game, because right now they seem very separate from the game.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice if they were more in the game, because it would kind of give a bit of a feeling that instead of like, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't actually play the game, it's like, okay, you play the game, maybe you do know what you're talking about, kind of thing from the GMs.
That's not a bad thing. It's like seeing a bit of like a police officer just on the streets. You would actually see a GM in game now and again.
Yeah,
so.
Or like with the officers, I mean, it's not hard to see officers, but seeing officers just like having fun, like dancing with the kids or getting into a water gun fight with the kids, that kind of thing. Like you see the occasional video on it, and it goes a long way to giving that community like, hey, yeah, they're in a uniform, but they're people like us.
Yeah.
So, and I think the same kind of applies to the GMs. It's like they are people like us, and I think seeing them more in the world, I think would be really cool, especially if, like, as I had mentioned, like a hide and seek thing where it's like, hey, go find the GM, they're somewhere here,
I like that idea. I really, really think that's a cool idea. I think you need to talk to Blizzard about that.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to suggest that.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, Glonk, it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
If people want to, get in touch with you on the interwebs, where can they find you?
Best way to find me is on Twitter, @Glonkable. I post random dog photos. I do a little bit of photography, so I'll occasionally post some of my photos up there, like whatever I'm really into. I will warn you though, I watch a lot of live PD. So like Friday, Saturday nights when live PD is going, I'm tweeting about whatever shenanigans are happening, and a lot of times it's quite entertaining sometimes seeing, but it's what I'm into. It's a profession that I'm going into. So, but I post a lot of random things, and I mean, if you like the random, you like seeing kind of what I'm up to, seeing what my dog's up to or what mischief he's got himself into this time, Twitter is honestly the best place to find me.
Sounds good. Sounds really good. Well, again, thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was amazing talking to Glonk, and really some stuff to think about as well. And I actually posted this question on Twitter, which is the question of the week. How hard are you finding it to do endgame content? Are in real life responsibilities like work, kids, maybe shifts, making it harder or easier to get into a dedicated raid team for you? And how do you make it work? Or do you just jump into LFR? So I was really, curious how you guys do all of this. So let's jump into Twitter and see what you guys said. So the Crosshair said, same really, work, etc. life revolves around me. Otherwise, it's not a job, it's slavery. That's, yep, that I can see that point of view. Nick Z, or Nick Z, depends where you come from, I guess, said, I could probably find time to raid if I didn't prioritize podcasting. Quit my raid team when my first child was born. I do LFR when a quest calls for it. Mechagon style content is what I can handle for now. I hear that a lot, and again, I think it's actually not a bad thing that things have changed a little bit. Just compare it to Classic with how it is now, I can't not raid like I used to do. Even back in the day I couldn't really do it with my work, but it's just different nowadays. I don't know if it's just life demanding more of us, and we're expected to do different things than 15 years ago, but it just all feels a little bit different. The Spooky Good Girl said, working the varied hours of retail makes it almost impossible to join a raid group. I'm using LFR now, but I'd love to have a dedicated team to play with. Maybe one day. And she has a sad smiley with that. So, yeah, I can imagine with retail, it's difficult, isn't it, when you have shift work, because you never have a set time. Mikey said, I managed to wrap up the war campaign fairly easy as far as time is concerned. As far as raiding is concerned, life definitely gets in the way of being able to join a raid team. It's a bummer because I really want to do it. Hashtag hopeless in Colorado. Oh, I hope that maybe you will find a raid team that is flexible like that. Stormy Steph said, since I had my daughter 2 years ago, I have very little time to get online. I am lucky when I can even jump into LFR. I know I should play when she sleeps, but I'm so tired I usually fall asleep with her. I've heard that from many a parent. So I can only, take my hat off to you. Max Wells said, way too busy to do much of anything. I finished the war campaign and hope to do a Shara raid on LFR soon. I keep up with the events through commute podcasts and treadmill videos. Ooh, treadmill videos. I like that. Now I'm thinking like something probably more like, oh, is there like special videos that, but I'm assuming what you mean is that you watch YouTube videos about the WoW news on your treadmill, which is clever. I like that. I really, really do like that. Talking about treadmills, sorry, I'm going to slightly go off track here. I remember seeing a video of someone who made this for the treadmill. So it was a basically walking from, I think it was Aberdeen, all the way to the other end of Kalimdor. What's the bottom of Kalimdor? I can't remember. Was it? No, it's not Ashara. I think it's Desolus? No. Is it? No. Not Desolus. What's the other one? Sisyphus. And it was all done from, first person, and it was almost as if you were walking that road. And that's not a bad thing. I actually really enjoyed that. That was quite fun when I did it once. Okay. Let's continue. So, Tomo Lantern, short and simple, said LFR. I guess LFR works for a lot of people. Hawk said, had to give up the dedicated stuff when the little one was born, but when he gets a bit older, has a little bit more responsibility, and doesn't need to be watched 24/7, I may get back into it some. For now, with retail LFR, it does what it's supposed to for ones like me. I think that's fair enough, That's basically retail is catering more towards people who can't dedicate themselves to a raid team. Sai said, I raid every Wednesday usually, and it's been that way for so long that it's just part of my routine now, kids and all. So what I see from most replies is that people have, I think LFR is really almost like a godsend, really, just because people have kids nowadays, people have shift work, and it's just really difficult to combine those with a dedicated guild. So I think it's good that at least retail is catering to that. And look at Classic, it's a completely different ball game there. Even though it could probably be a lot quicker than it used to be, because I remember we had raid nights that lasted for 4 or 5 hours, which is, I think 5 hours is a bit long, but it happened. I know, and I couldn't do that anymore. I don't know if I want to, in all fairness. So yeah, you guys had lots to say, and keep an eye on Twitter. That is at whispers_of_war for any questions or anything that I throw at you guys, and you can participate, of course. So let's jump into the final bit of the show, which is how to RP. So for those of you who hate RP, tough shit. This is going to be it now. And last week we talked a little bit about the races that you could play and how you can alter them if you want to be a little bit more creative. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to play your race. I might actually, after this base series, I might actually go into a deep dive of the races and how you could RP those individually. So I will come back to that, but let's start with building your character when it comes to personality, and that is a big thing. First, I want to say that you can play your character how you want, but it helps to have a little bit of an understanding how your character would react to certain things. Like, for instance, if your character is a very logical person, would they still, are they very calm and collected, or are they kind of hot-headed? That's your base, really, and you need to think about, well, is it out of character for how they would respond to certain issues? So let's just start with the basis. Your base emotion. And like I said, you've already thought about, what sort of class you want to play and what sort of character comes with that. So you could be a very calm, collected mage, and you're like, I like studying, I like to have knowledge is really important to me, and I want to be calm and collected. So that could be a base, or you might be a hot-headed warrior type, and you are very much of the whole, no, I want to, as soon as I can fight something, I will. I'm not backing down from fights. I'm very quick to my temper flares really quickly. That's your base emotion, really, and you build upon that. So that's really how you start off as a big character. A big character way of being, I guess, and then you expand on it. So the next part you go into is just going a bit deeper in those personality traits. So, with anger, you could have someone who's very passionate about things. So someone who is very quick to push their emotions on the outside might also be very quickly to actually be very happy about things and very just the emotions are stronger maybe with this person. Whereas someone who is much more about studying and intellectual, maybe there's something else going on there. Maybe they are very uneasy around other people and become a little bit like wallflowers. So you just extend a little bit about that main character trait, I would almost say, and then you just see, okay, well, I'll add this to it and this would go well with it, and that's how you build it up. Now, to make your character a little bit more, I would say, flavorful, go for some pluses and minuses. And what I mean with that is give them, the pluses could be quirks. So it could be maybe they have they giggle when they're nervous. So they have like a very infectious giggle, or maybe they're a bit like a bard, and when they're really happy they burst out into song, or you know, just weird things like that. Or they're very good at rhyming or solving puzzles or riddles, things like that. So that's like the funny quirks. Other things could be, I mean, my funny quirk was when, for instance, my mage is a Worgen mage. She has a little bit of a temper at times. She's not happy with who she is, really. She doesn't like the curse. She feels very ugly and beastly with it, but it's served her well with certain things. However, she also feels that when she gets a bit nervous and people talk about her wolf form, she just starts to distract people by making mana cakes for them. And that's a little bit of it. She gets a nervous twitch with that, and she's like, oh, I need to make some cakes here, have cakes, because she thinks that people will like her if she provides them with food, because who doesn't like food? So that could be one of those quirks. Now, another thing that you could do, instead of like a plus, it could be a minus. And this is a thing I do a lot with characters I really, really enjoy playing. And those are things that are a little bit like, ooh, not so pretty. So flaws. Think about, okay, easiest one that you could do. Have a rogue who's a bit of a kleptomaniac. So, you know, and I play my rogues a lot like that. They have a bit of sticky fingers because it fits the class so well. But you can do this with any class, really. Even with a priest or a paladin, just think of the inner turmoil that you have with someone who's that righteous. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know how this statue got in my bag. You know, it's weird things like that. Or maybe someone who always feels very nervous and therefore feels like they have bad luck, trip over their feet all the time, even when you really don't want to trip over your feet in, like, oh, let's say, you know, a temple with lots of booby traps. So someone who feels really clumsy or always says the wrong things. I will warn you now, you can have something like a flaw like stuttering, for instance. Just keep in mind that it is very hard to RP that consistently, and it's also very difficult for people around you to have the patience to deal with people who stutter, who type stutter. So that's a warning. You could do it, but just watch out with how you do certain things. You know, you do want... The whole thing about RPing is that you interact with other people. What else? What else could you do? Maybe you are very... You know, when you're a big race, maybe like a Tauren or a Draenei, you don't like being in really small areas because what might be fine for human or a gnome might not be so good for you. You might get really claustrophobic in certain areas, or you know, you might have a fear of water. It's really weird, and you can make it as obscure as you want to. I've seen someone who actually said they had a fear of gnomes. So yeah, you are going to make some really interesting RP with that. So that's really where you go with your character development. Another tip, if you find it really difficult, try and base your character on your own personality. That just, you know, it might sound almost like boring to yourself, but it will help you a little bit on the way, because you can think, well, how would I react to that? Instead of thinking, someone who is really quick to anger, how would they react to that? If you use yourself for a while just to get into it and just start to learn how to think in character, that will help you later on. So just slowly start building it up by thinking, okay, well, if that was me, how would I react to that? And you can exaggerate it a little bit because that is RP, really. So maybe for certain things you would just be like, well, I wouldn't be happy. Well, maybe now you would fly off the handle for it, you know, and really go like, I'm really angry now, or it is a fantasy game, so just, you know, push it a little bit maybe. And you can build from that. You can really build from that. I think it's also perfectly fine that during the course of your RPing, if you want to change your character a little bit with your character, why not? Why not have their personalities change? Maybe something happened and they've changed 180. Some we constantly have like big events that change people's perspective. So yeah, maybe they've experienced something traumatic, and that's really it. Yeah. So that's really it about building your personality. And then next week we'll dive into the real meat, which is the backstory. Yeah, there's a lot to say about that, and I do think we need to address it as well, because there's very different ways of tackling this. So next week we will talk about the backstory. Anyhow, I hope that you guys find this a little bit useful. It's interesting for me to start thinking about this again, because I haven't done that in like a very long time. Because most of my RP backgrounds are already established. But maybe with my new characters I have to start thinking about it. Anyhow, if you want to participate with any of this, then you can do that in the following ways. You can find the podcast on whispersofwar.podbean.com. Please join us on Discord, because we love talking to people, and if you want to leave some feedback or something about the show, or things that you want me to talk about, or maybe something you find, give me a different point of view on things, then you can do that as well. Go to dragonpoweredstudio.com/Discord and join us. I've seen a few of you already join, so welcome. And of course on Twitter, you can find me there as well, at whispers_of_war. _war. There's lots of underscores in here. That's where you can find the show account. My own account is McMonkeys with a Z. And you can always email the show, whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, Twitch, where I have to confess it's not just going to be World of Warcraft. So if you just want to watch WoW, I think you're better off watching probably Taliesin and Evitel, or, oh no, Preach is not just doing Warcraft anymore. But there's loads of people that you can find on Twitch just playing World of Warcraft. If you want to watch me play Warcraft or other stuff, especially these builder games, then go to twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs. That's where you can find me. So we're going to talk about Blizzcon predictions soon. Keep an eye on all of that, and many more things. I hope you guys have a really great time in Azeroth. If you've done any RP or trying out things and my tips are helping you, I'd love to hear that. Or if it really hasn't helped you, I'm sorry. But enjoy your time in Azeroth, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye-bye!
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.